Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to ADVMoto Live, number 32, American Rally Originals due Dakar. What's up with rally racing? Why is it the ultimate off-road competition? And we'll talk with a team of U.S. riders that are setting out to tackle one of the hardest races in the world and one of the most difficult classes, Malle Moto. Who are they? Why are they doing this? And what can we do to help? All that on tonight's ADVMoto Live. First, I want to give a quick announcement to the WYBDR guys. If you remember last show, we had the folks from BDR here. We talked about their new route, which looks like a killer route. But we hope that you'll join us. We'd like to invite you for ADVMoto's Wyoming BDR film screening. If you're in the Mid-Atlantic area, that's going to be at the Lost Rhino Brewery in Ashburn, Virginia on Friday, February 25th, starting at around 7 p.m. If anyone is around, please come, hang out, watch the film, meet some fellow riders, and register at the link in the description. And we've got over $1,000 in prizes from Climb. DC Dirt Camp is going to be doing some training, some are offering some free training. Motion Pro's got some sick tools and a cool bag from Turkana Gear. So we hope to see everyone there. But now on with the show. All right. Tonight's show, pretty special to me because it hits some milestones that had never really been done before. But, you know, we have a special focus on rally racing at ADVMoto. We believe in the stories and the dedication that a lot of the riders have to prepare, suffer, and kind of go through in order to even make it to the event. And we have some very special guests tonight. You know, rally racing is one of the greatest forms of motorsport competition ever. I truly believe that. And whether you're, you know, solo on a bike or you're teamed up in a truck, you know, the challenge of the terrain, the endurance, the navigation really tests both mind and body for everybody involved, even the crew. You know, in the history of Dakar, apparently no Americans have finished the Malle Moto class to date, but Team American Rally Originals is setting out to change that in the 2023 Dakar. What's the appeal of rally racing? Why is the Malle Moto so difficult? And are these dudes crazy enough to pull this off? Everyone, please welcome Kyle McCoy and David Pearson. How's it going, guys?
Nice.
Good. How are you?
All right. Staying alive over here. Do you guys, of course, get the applaud track? All right. So thanks for coming on the show tonight. You know, can you just kick off with, you know, where are you guys from, and what's your background? Like, how'd you guys get into riding? Kyle, you want to start? Kyle's been on the show before, so maybe you might recognize him. But Kyle, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, Carl. So I am based in Seattle, Washington. And still obviously live here. I've been here 15 years now. Grew up in the Midwest. I'm, you know, relative to David, I'm new to the sport. I've been riding motorcycles about 10 years, so not that long, and rally probably 7 or 8 years of that. I'm not a racer by background, so that doesn't come naturally to me. But I was in the Army, did a lot of time in the Army, and the navigation aspect comes naturally, and also was a pretty competitive endurance runner in a prior life, and traveled all around the world and ran. So, and also distances, sort of kilometers, and the metric system comes pretty naturally to me. So that's how, you know, I got started with, in terms of just getting really into rally. I started with the Baja Rally, Sonora Rally, some sort of club, you know, group rides in America, and then went to Africa Eco Race and finished Dakar in a supported, that is, in 2020. And so that's kind of my background.
Right on. And David?
Kyle doesn't do justice to some of the things he's accomplished in his background. Like I always joke, and if you read our press release, I said, doing the Dakar Malle Moto style is kind of like doing the Iditarod without a dog sled. And I was joking, and he's like, well, I ran the Iditarod without a dog sled. Like, I'm like a backpack and you tented. He's like, I totally ran the Iditarod. I'm like, who the hell runs the Iditarod? So Kyle's done some pretty amazing runs in his world. And I've been in motorcycles since I was 14. I'm kind of a crazy immigrant from Canada that lives in the States these days, a little nomadically. And right now I'm down in Arizona. I'm actually secretly in Utah right now, riding with Skylar Howes and Mason Jones. So I'm playing around with some of those top Dakar guys, which is a really cool experience to have. But I got into dirt bikes in my late 20s and got into racing enduros and nationals, hair scrambles, and that led me to do some big desert races. I've done the Vegas to Reno a couple of times, the Baja 1000, and then I got into the industry, Carl. You know what it's like when you get into the industry, you don't get to ride so much. So and so then I got into selling motorcycles and working in dealerships for a bunch of years. And then I got back into racing, and I found my way into rally about 5 years ago. And I got hooked. I just totally, after the first one, I'm like, that was awesome. I'm like, I get to use my brain and my body, and I get to move fast, and I can actually compete with some guys, just in a navigation level was pretty cool for me. So this is a pretty neat thing we do.
That's cool. And the bikes are sick.
And the bikes are sick.
let's just be straight about that. Now, a lot of the folks in the US, we don't really know much about the riding scene in Canada. What's it like in the off-road, like competitive scene over there? I mean, you can talk about motocross or whatever, or if there's a strong rally scene there. I think I would love to know about it.
We joke every time we go to the Sonora and the Baja Rally at how many Canadians showed up to do it. I was last weekend, I was in the Sonoran Desert doing navigation training prior to the Sonora Rally. They put on a class, and there were 24 of us in the class. 8 of them were Canadians. And so in British Columbia, Alberta, it's just got big open expanse and stuff that you can really do rally with. So there's certainly a small group of guys that are pretty passionate about it, but I mean, you only get to do it like 2 months out of the year. The rest you're in tundra, so.
Oh yeah, that's true. And I guess from time to time, right, the Dakar route changes countries and regions of the earth and terrain, right? So I guess the native advantage of being from an area, let's say like the American Southwest, right, which I've heard is extremely similar to the sand, right, like in Saudi Arabia. It makes more sense to train out there if it's similar, right? But but would training in Canada be more maybe like rallies in Eastern Europe or something like that, or like terrain wise?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that question. I moved to the States when I was pretty young and wasn't really. I was on street bikes in Canada, and I didn't get on a dirt bike until I got in the United States. So it's hard to imagine. I rode in BC earlier this year, and they definitely have a passion for it. But the weather and the efforts there are just, you think we're limited sometimes, and they're just significantly more limited. I mean, Kyle is in Washington. I'm not sure how many days of riding you get in Washington State, Kyle, but I'm always impressed to see you ride when you come down. I'm like, how many days have you ridden? He's like 3, and he goes. So.
Yeah, well, Kyle's a natural at it, I suppose, because I know Kyle, you do a lot of the running, right? You do a lot of running.
Yeah, I did a lot of running. I joke around. I'm like I sort of Skylar Howes, Braybeck, Andrew Short, Mason Klein. These guys, that was me in running. That is definitely not me in this sport. I'm more the middle of the pack guy. But I was a pretty top competitor in terms of ultra marathons all around the world. Traveled to Antarctica, China, Namibia, you name it. I was sort of there, and that came naturally. But about 2017, I started, surprise, having some issues with my knees and back, and decided that it's time to shift a little. And so got in, and I thought I love to travel. I'd love to see the world. I'd love to meet interesting people. And the suspension, it turns out, on those bikes is pretty good for the old knees and back. So that took the place of it. And the distances, you know, it's really long distances, I tell people, and the navigation, that's what to some extent levels the playing field for a guy like me that doesn't have the skills of the natural riding ability of a guy like David, or frankly other guys on our team. And that's the part I love about it.
Right on. You know, in running, and I used to run a little bit when I was in high school too, like, you know, there was your sprint runners, and then there was your endurance runners, right? You know what I mean? And there's a big mentality between the two. Do you see any parallels in that in the motorcycle world?
Oh, absolutely. That's the best part, especially in rally racing, because you know, we'll see, and David knows this really well, we'll see a really fast guy who comes from motocross or even national hare and hounds, and then they'll come out to rally not really fully grasping the navigation part, and they will just blast by, and then, you know, they make a wrong turn and I'll sort of putt by and keep going, and then they blast by again, and then we sort of flip-flop back and forth. And that's the best, frankly, it's the best part of the sport. But to your point, yes, there's definitely a sprint. There's a mixture between being able to go fast, and you can only go as fast as you can navigate. And that's the best part of the sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's one of the reasons I love it. So, all right, let's take a step back. Let's go to the mile high view, and, you know, let's answer the question for those that might not be really familiar with it. And that is, you know, what is rally racing? And how is it different from other types of off-road racing in the United States or North America in general?
Go ahead, David.
Oh, I mean, there's a huge, big difference. And maybe, you know, most off-road riding that happens right now, desert races, Bajas, the Vegas to Reno 500s, the Score Series stuff, you start on a course. That course is clearly well marked. Sometimes you even get to pre-ride the course, and then you get to compete in it. Rally is a completely different animal in the sense that you show up to the starting grid, and fundamentally you get handed the course on a road book, and then you are also provided a compass and an odometer, and you have to navigate through whatever directions they give you and hit key points along the route to justify your survival of this event and finish. And so there is a constant challenge with the strategy of who the first people are out and breaking trail. For the most part, the exciting thing for me, quite honestly, is that, you know, we'll start the course out and it'll be on a nice piece of beautiful 2-track trail, and then the promoter or the author of the road book will take a right and we'll be on like a cow trail, you know, a donkey run. And then after that, he'll say, take another right at 87 degrees and go that way for 3 kilometers. And there's no trail at all. And it's got ravines and mountains and sand dunes and shit that you just can't even imagine. And you have to navigate in and around and through that and still hit critical points along the race, or you suffer time and penalties that hurt your overall standings. And it doesn't happen in a day. It happens in 5, 6, 8, 15 days if you go to the Dakar. Did I say that well, Kyle?
Well said.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I mean, I can remember when I was first learning about the Dakar race. I mean, well over 10 years ago, right? You see these, and that was when it was still in Africa, but it was multiple countries, right? And that was, you know, you would see these tracks leading off into the dunes, right? And then you would see guys following tracks off into the dunes, right? And then, you know, it's not always good to follow tracks, right? Like that's probably got to be, to me, one of the most interesting psychological challenges of it, which is, you know, you have that herd instinct. Well, everybody's going this way, right? You know what I mean? But it doesn't necessarily mean it's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do you deal with that? I mean, that's a real hell of a challenge.
I've always said that dirt bike and rally in particular is one of the few ways that, mostly for us men, we can express all of our emotions in life. It's anxiety and love and hate, and it's, you know, and it's the passion of the stuff, and like, I don't know where I'm going, and, you know, do you turn around and you get confusion? I mean, it's just, it gives you everything all rolled into one, and you have to develop trust sometimes with the people that you're competing with, because you often piggyback off of what they do, and I like that. That's part of the cool strategy side of it.
All right, that's cool. I'm gonna scroll some footage from the Dakar site here, just to kind of go in the background for those who haven't seen it. This is kind of what you're looking at. This is from the 2022 Dakar, guys figuring out where to go. But so let's take a little zoom in from rally racing in general. We'll talk about Dakar and talk about the Malle Moto, right? So the Malle Moto is a special class, at least to me and anybody that knows anything about it. So maybe you can help us understand, how does it differ from some of the other classes of rally racing, and or maybe you can help us understand what are the general motorbike classes in Dakar.
Yeah, maybe I'll take this one, and David, feel free to add. So just at a high level, the Dakar's around 40 years old. Been around a long time. The vast majority of that was in Africa. To be clear, it's like 25-ish of the 40 years were in Africa. Somewhere around 2007, for safety reasons, they moved it to South America. Then they did that for several years, multi-country, and Saudi Arabia since 2020. That's just the backdrop. Now, Malle Moto, it's also organized by the French, and a lot of people don't know that the ASO, which is the organizers of the Dakar Rally, also organized the Tour de France. So they do some big events. Tour de France is a big, world's largest bicycle race, and Malle simply means trunk, and moto is obviously motorcycle. So it means one trunk and motorcycle. And the idea is unsupported. You are your own mechanic. You are your own everything. Now, competitors can support each other, but you cannot have a mechanic at the end of the day. And so that's essentially what Malle Moto. Now, in terms of the total entrance, the other thing to know about Dakar Rally is that it's not just motorcycles. I think most people know this probably on this. Cars, trucks, quads, side-by-sides, multi-classes now. So it's the far and away the world's largest motorsport event. 35-ish of the 150-ish motorcycle riders are in this class. No American has ever finished. One American has attempted, unfortunately crashed, and didn't make it to the end. But when I did in 2020, I realized when in my research, I connected with all the historical riders. There's been 34 different Americans finish Dakar Rally, some of them multiple times, obviously, but 34 different. And I realized this is really cool. It's a challenge. I also came in just devastated each day after spending 14, 15 hours on a bike, starting when it was dark in the liaison to the special, then a liaison. And then the last thing I want to do was work on a bike. So that to me, it scared me, and I like being scared. That's good for us. And so what I did know was that the more Americans I could convince to sort of sign up for this idiotic task we're taking on, the better our odds, because we can help each other, right? So we can help each other. We cannot have a mechanic touch our bike at the end of the day. That's effectively it's the most pure way to finish Dakar Rally. There's no factory, anything related to Malle Moto.
How about tire changes? I seem to remember that there's a tire changing station where you can help get that done or something. Is that correct?
They have helped a little in tire changes, but to understand Malle Moto, they also kind of lock us in a paddock every day. So at the end of the day, we all go into our own central area where no other racers and no other spectators can really assist us. And then they also require us all to spend the night in tents and sleeping bags. So where the pros and even the guys that show up and do it in a supported fashion, often have reasonably better accommodations than sleeping. So, 3 massages, and the therapy, the meal made for them, it just keeps going, right? So it's so there's a lot of challenge to truly getting through this class and surviving it. I mean, it's the ultimate Ironman for motorcycles,
What, you mean those guys don't get the full blast of power generators and air tools going off at like 3 and 4 in the morning when you're past? I guess if you get tired enough, you don't really care, right?
Some of our team has had to test out how well we're going to do at yelling at each other when we're stressed, right? So,
Oh yeah,
because that's
yeah,
coming, man. That is coming.
yeah. Well, that's another thing. So in the Malle Moto, right? You run as an individual, but you guys are setting up as a team. Can you tell me? I mean, first, if you could give me a brief introduction of your team members. I mean, who they are, because they're not all here tonight, obviously. And then how is this a team for you guys? You know, what I mean,
I mean, we are the American Rally Originals. We understand, to Kyle's point and to Malle Moto rules, we're individuals, but we recognize for us to get from the continent of the United States to Saudi Arabia is a monumental task. And if we can all work together to get over to the start line, then we can operate. And within the race, we'll have the ability to assist each other. We're hoping that none of us need it and we all make it across the line. But we want to see somebody complete this class. So we are a team of individuals that have kind of pooled our resources and pooled our efforts and our history together. To your question on the team, and we look at our team members, and we got a gentleman by the name of Morrison Mohart, who's been at the Sonora and the Baja since some of its inception. He's been a podium guy. He's a constant finisher. He's a hell of a navigator. He really came from running on the U.S. sailing team. Made a couple of runs in the Olympics, and so he's got a tremendous amount of skills on the nav side and the logistics end. My brother will be participating in this, Jim Pearson, who's probably one of the best mechanics we have in our world, and is going to really help us with setup and configuration, how we do stuff. We got our young gun, Paul Neff, who's a ISDE gold and silver medalist. He runs a riding training school with Jimmy Lewis. He's done trials events. He's just a phenomenal rider. He got into rally here just a few years ago, and he's really ducked to watered it. And so he drank the Kool-Aid hard, and we can't slow the man down. It's impressive. Kyle is clearly our inspirational leader, and has done it and really given us some of the backdrop in which for us to all get there. He's been the historian, and so he's the guy that we look to for the vision to make this happen. So it's a team of individuals, but we know we need all the American support and all the American community to help us to really kind of kick this one and make it happen.
Right on. So you said right at the end of the night, they kind of shuttled you guys away into a separate area, right? And is it just racers from outside the Malle class can't kind of mess with you there, or can you guys help each other inside them, or are you still, even when you're off the bikes, are you guys still, you have to be fully independent?
Well, so that's a good question. So it is, and also you should know that the class is now called Original by Motul. Motul is just a factory sponsor related to that specific segment of motorcycle racers, and it is an area, to your point, Carl. There is sort of a barricade around it, but it's not as though they don't let people enter or exit. It's just that you cannot allow another competitor or a mechanic to touch your bike. That's basically, unless they're in the Original by Motul class. That's the important distinction. We have our own truck there, a big old giant, semi with all of our boxes, and we each get that one box. So okay. The real challenge is actually not at the end of the day. Well, of course it's at the end of the day, we're taking care of the bikes, but the scale of this race, I tell people to understand it, it's about 5,000 miles, give or take, each year. Now, I live in Seattle, so get on your bike, ride from Seattle, go to New York City, go back to Montana. That's the distance that you're going to the 2/3 to 3/4 of that is off-road in special stages, really challenging. And so the days are super long, and that's the real challenge. Now, to your question earlier, we're on our own. We are individuals to get to the end of each day. Now, if I saw David having issues, I would of course stop and we'd help each other out, and the competitors can. But there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of issues that happen, and most competitors should just assume you've got to sort out your own challenges along the way.
Right on, right on. So we have a question in the chat room, and that will be, what's the cost of getting over to the race? And then I also want to tag a question onto that is, what are you guys doing about the bikes?
I'll tackle a bit of that. So I've been helping out with some of the logistics. Cost is a crazy question I get asked all the time, and so depending on a couple of ways that you do stuff, the easy thing is to factor 80 or 100 grand to really encompass this completely in some capacity. You can cut corners and do things in different ways. The logistics for us to get there is almost a daunting challenge for us as when we're there and doing the event. You have to there's key things at the Dakar that they try to provide. One of them is motorcycles. There's a number of organizations that will provide rentals because there's so many people coming from around the world that often logistically moving your bike across that many continents and that many countries becomes custom wise hard. So for the most part, a lot of guys will, and we will look at some of that capacity too, where we will rent some of them and then be able to just roll over there with our boxes and everything else set up to do that. But to try and get them from the United States is a whole nother challenge. And we're 10 months away from this race, 9 and some change. And so some of those pieces are coming together for us over the next 30, 60 days.
Wow. That's some, that's some work. So when you guys train, right? I mean, you're probably going to be training on different bikes, right? Then you'll actually be competing. And I think, Kyle, this is what you did too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And also Nathan too, right?
Yeah, correct. And yes. So those that don't know him, Nathan Rafferty was the person who I really followed into this. He was a privateer that did it the year before me, a fantastic guy who's sort of my guide in this. But yes, so we train, the vast majority of people train on a 500, whatever it is. It tends to be a KTM 500, a lot of Husky 500s. And then you mount but also Honda. And then you mount this rally tower to it. It takes a little bit of extra work to set it up, but that's how you train. Now, after I finished the race is done on a very specific bike, which tends to, not always, but tends to be a KTM 450 Rally Factory replica, which is what it is. It's obvious. It's a 450. 450 is the max size of a bike. It carries 8.5 gallons of gas, two tanks front and rear, actually 3 tanks front and rear. And it's just an incredible bike. And to David's point, I rented mine, and then there's only 80 of these per year on average, and they're dedicated to Dakar. And I rented it, then I finished, and I had the option to buy it, and I bought mine. So now I train on that bike and the KTM 500 EXC, which is heavily modified for rally.
Wow, that's pretty sweet. And David, what do you ride on?
I try and borrow Kyle's, but he won't lend it to me.
He's like that kid with like that big Millennium Falcon toy when you were growing up. Had all the figures inside and you just couldn't play with it.
Yep. I drool sometimes when I see his bike, but I also am scared to get on it because if I break something, it's just a commitment. But I have a 21 KTM 500 EXCF that I use for my rally racing here on the stateside world and states in Mexico. So we've got, there's lots of events coming up, and it's so great to see a rally truly in the United States this year in September as well. So we're excited about hitting that as well as some of the stuff in Mexico.
Right on. So, in the whole chart of this thing, right? Like what you guys need as a group, right? To get everybody in, right? I mean, in the evolution or the progress of this, right, up to this point, what stuff have you guys already accomplished, and what challenges do you have ahead of you in terms of preparation?
We keep feeling like we're behind the curve, but a lot of things have happened. Us bringing the team together, we've been fortunate enough that there's been some early adopters into our world. We've been fortunate that Climb has stepped up fully on a gear sponsorship for us, so we thank them tremendously for doing that. Giant Loop has stepped up to support us in a lot of ways. We've had a lot of individual supporters that have come through our world. And so now it's a lot of it is the logistics pieces to both acquire the motorcycles and to get through the ASO entry process. In this race, the majority of people that do this event are Europeans. And so they all run under an FIM license, which is an international motorcycle license, which the United States just doesn't really play in very much with some of their events, MotoGP, some of those things. So we have to go through some licensing efforts, and those licensing efforts go down the path of even doctor visits and medical records and whatnot to get through some of those. So we're in that process as we speak to get through those steps so that when entry doors open, we're fully ready to throw through the entries and get through that process.
Now, do they accept everyone as long as you kind of meet the requirements, or is there a lottery system, or is it the first through, or what?
Kyle's been more the researcher on a lot of that historical side.
Oh.
And maybe he's better answer because it's a game, it's still part of the game.
Kyle, what do you think?
There is no easy answer to that. It's complicated. You have to have done a rally, obviously. You probably need to do a rally which is recognized by the Dakar organization. In North America, that's Sonora Rally, which is a road to Dakar competition. Certainly any competitive rally will help, but there is no easy answer. And they take literally a resume of each rider, and then they'll accept you based on your resume of overall experience. For me, it was Baja Rally, Sonora Rally, Africa Eco Race, Dakar. But I did it fully supported, and I didn't have a real extensive racing experience prior to that. I think they just assumed, well, this guy probably is going to be able to finish. And the challenge for us, a lot of unknowns with Malle Moto. Malle Moto apparently is in really high demand. So there are about 35 slots. We're 5 Americans that would like to all get in. We don't obviously know what will happen, but I would say we're well qualified. There's some decision that they have to make with respect to how many slots to allot to America, right? So that's ultimately what's we don't know, and we won't know until July.
Yeah, well, if they haven't had many slots requested in America, then
that's correct. Exactly. Good point,
right.
Carl. So that we think obviously it's attractive because we're a big market for them, America. We need more, frankly, way more Americans riding in this style of racing.
Yeah.
And Europeans do this like it's just another Monday, which is, I joke around, but every person over there is European. Also, to be fair, a lot of South Americans, but most are Europeans, and they do it like it's just another week. And so they look at us like America, big market. We probably want some more of them to compete, but we don't know that we're going to be able to take 5 of the 35 slots.
Yeah, I mean, is it hard for them to expand that, or is that just really up to the work? I mean, you have no idea. You have no idea if they'd be willing to do that or not. Or
yeah, no idea. But it's been pretty static at 150 capped total motorcycle riders for a while, with 35 of those being dedicated to Malle Moto or original by Motul class.
Wow. Okay.
The logistics for the race organization are daunting, and I've been playing in it now for a few months just to think about how a race organization gets 150 motorcycles and then a whole nother pile of trucks, SUVs, and side-by-sides through literally tens of thousands of miles or kilometers is a task in itself. And so some of it, they just have capacity issues. I know last year of the 35, there were more than 35 Malle Moto entries, and some guys got turned away because they just didn't, they just took the top qualifiers in the big picture of the world. But to Kyle's point, I think this is the year for Americans, and Americans have really made an inroads into this race the last 4 or 5 years. Ricky Braybrick, broke records only 4 or 5 years ago and actually became the first American to ever win the event. This year, coming out of last year, there were 3 Americans in the top 10, right? And one a privateer rookie that just did a phenomenal job, Mason Klein. And, we were all looking to see Skylar Howes do well, and he had a little injury midway through. But it was still a great year for Andrew Short. Mason and the whole crew there. So this is a good year, and I think the Americans still have a lot more to show in the big picture.
Right on. Now let's backtrack for a second, right? Kyle was talking about, needing more Americans to run this, right? Now we know this is not mainstream media news stuff here at this point in time, although we hope that changes. But the question is like, if you were, say, you were in motocross or something in the U.S., right? What would be your kind of stepping stone path? You know what I mean? To get to rally racing.
I'll hit this, and then I know Kyle's. So for like one of the best events for me was 2017, the Sonora Rally. Darren just does a phenomenal job. It's an amazing rally. We ride sand dunes a little bit like Saudi Arabia, so it's great training. But Andrew Short was there for the first time, and he had just retired at 30 years old from the Supercross motocross circuit. And so we had a phenomenal 4 or 5 days because we diced it up all the time. And to Kyle's point, he's phenomenally fast, and he would blow a corner. I'd make the corner, he'd catch up, and we just played cat and mouse for a couple of days. But to move from motocross to rally, it's not that easy. And Andrew could tell you, it's just a different skill set, and what you do is different, and even the way that you ride is different. And how I rode national enduros is way different than how I ride rally racing, and the effort to survive that many miles and that many days and conserve your tires and conserve your motorcycle. It's a different game, right? And you just have to go do it, and you have to go find somebody in our country that can take you out and show you some rally routes and just practice building one on the computer to get a feel for it.
Sure. Now, we know that there's a bunch of events, just kind of south of the border, but are there any in the United States that someone could just kind of, show up at and kind of give it a shot in a, in kind of, I don't want to say grassroots, but in, kind of a low pressure, community supportive atmosphere?
I'm going to give a big plug out for the COTA rally. Mike Graves is doing it's in Colorado and Utah. You have to have a reasonably DOT approved motorcycle, somewhere probably in the light category, 350 to 500, and you're going to get to do 5 days of rally navigation all through that part of the country, which is gorgeous. It's central. You can get there. You don't have to cross a border. He is the first guy in many, many years that worked hard enough to get past the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management and the AMA to have a sanctioned AMA rally event on United States soil. So it's in September, I think 12th through the 17th. And if you want to just go experience what this is like before you start dumping into international activities, this would be the one to go to.
Awesome. That's good news. That sounds like it's kind of a story on its own, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, putting these things together is no small feat. Now, are the rules on that international standard, or are there any slight variations for the U.S. market? You know what I mean?
Yeah, every promoter kind of makes his own rules. And so there's variances to those rules based off of some of the efforts that they do. Back to the Sonora Rally, which is a Dakar qualifier, right? They have a Dakar challenge that if you go to the Sonora Rally and you enter the Dakar version and you win that, you win an entry into the next year's Dakar. So he runs things pretty tight to the vest as far as the FIM and the Dakar rules go. Mike Graves up at the COTA in the United States, because of the Forest Service and the BLM land, has to make some modifications to bike requirements and whatnot to be able to operate in this country to do that. So you really got to get to know the event and what the rules are to really compete well. And, I think we all like that there's more than just showing up and racing fast at a drop of a flag. It's about the strategy around understanding the rules and working within the system to be able to take the best advantages to try and do your best, right? And that's what I get out of it. I think Kyle enjoys some of those challenges as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the other thing that think I've experienced consistently in the rally community is, even though the pressures on you to perform are highly personal, everybody is there to help each other, right? And I mean, is that something? I think partly because you need each other, right? I mean, you guys are out in the middle of nowhere, and if some dude just blows by you and you need some serious help, and you need some serious help, that's a real serious problem. And what goes around comes around, right? So, I mean, do you think that that's special or unique to rally racing versus other forms of off-road racing that you've experienced? Or not
Yes,
really, just more so or less so?
Yeah, I would say that your point is correct. But of the 150 or so in motorcycles that are out there, there's probably, I don't know, 25, 30 that are full factory riders. That might be a little high, 20, 25. I wouldn't say those that are on different teams are stopping to help each other out. They're racing. They're racing. So now if they're on the same team, there's a lot of strategy and they help each other out. But you're out there, you're in the middle of nowhere, they will tend to stop and check on one another and help each other out. And I don't have enough experience to speak to the other sports, but I would say that's probably unique from what I could tell relative to other sports. The reality is it's just so long, so far that it's unique, and that there are no other options. It's you, another rider, or you're going to press that button on the bike and, a helicopter's going to fly in and pick up the bike and it's gone.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
To Kyle's points, I ran national enduros and motocross and air scrambles, and you go out there and you race on a Sunday, you do a couple motos or you do one solid enduro, everybody shakes hands. Half the people don't wait around for the trophies and you all leave, right? To the difference, and Kyle alluded to it, you may not help the guy out on the road unless he's hurt, and then we all have established rules within the organization how to help this guy and continue to function and do the race. But the really cool thing is, at the end of the night, you all get locked into kind of a bivouac and a tent situation, and you're all together. And so at night, everybody tends to help each other repair and solve their problems and be ready to get going for the next day. And you spend, hours with each of the competitors. So you bond with the guys and the ladies now more than you ever did at any other race. It's one of the things I really enjoy, because most of my races, you come, you go, you shake hands, you see each other on Facebook, and life's good. But when you spend 5 to 15 nights together with each other, you get to the point, you become family, and it's really cool.
Yeah, right on, man. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for out of adventure, just in general, whether you're traveling or you're racing. One of the hallmark characteristics of adventure to me is basically, not to be too cheesy, but the unity that people kind of feel. You know what I mean? It's not, and it's not given. It's earned, right? And I think that there's something really wonderful about that. That is almost unspeakable. But anyway, that's great stuff. So,
one other point I was going to make, Carl, just briefly because it's really important. I think we need more people in the sport in America to try it out. It seems very daunting. I want to make a couple of points. One is, there are resources out there. ADV Rider has some threads that are really good about rally. There aren't really any other major events in the US, but ADV Rider have some group gatherings that do this, and those are great ways to get started. Rally Moto Shop is a great resource. It's just a website with all things rally. Matthew Glade has done a phenomenal job of getting that, all kinds of options. And you can also get into the sport somewhat budgetary by using electronic as opposed to mechanical. And by that, I mean like an old iPad. You can use that. There are several apps. Rally Navigator is a fantastic one to get started. Rally Blitz is good to get started. Those are really easy ways to mount to an existing frame you've got set up and just go and try it out. But there aren't a lot. And that's how you really, to David's point earlier, the best way is to find someone who's done it and let them sort of shepherd you along. And the community is growing. There's no question about that. So we want to continue for it to grow.
Well, awesome, man. And of course, ADVMoto, straight up back behind you guys, man. We'll be following your progress, and if you guys have any stuff that you would like to get out, please certainly let us know. We know it's not easy, and we are totally committed to seeing everyday people challenge themselves. You know what I mean, and do things that they never thought that they would ever be able to do. So going forward, right? I mean, how can riders and watchers support the ARO? I mean, I realize you guys take a lot of the burden on as a group and also individually, but as far as from the community aspect of it, what can be done to help?
There's a lot. Number one, awesome that you're giving us this platform to have this conversation, and so that we know that you have a ton of listeners and viewers and people that just are into this stuff, And I mean, I've been a dual sport adventure rider most of my adult life, and it's cool to be able to drive around the country and just meet up with people and go ride. And so these things certainly help, and you'll see us at events at the Kota Rally, and thanks to Scotty at the Baja and Darren at the Sonora and PJ up in Wyoming and some of the things, we'll be at a lot of different events. But the easiest way to really connect with us at this point, and we're just coming online and getting more awareness going, is AmericanRallyTeam.com, which will lead you to our Facebook page, which will lead you to our Instagram page. And those would probably be some of the cooler places to follow us. We're definitely recognizing the daunting cost equation to get over there. And so, we know the community's been helping out. And so you can search GoFundMe on the American Rally Originals, and, any support there would be cool. We're still working with some sponsors to continue to move through the sponsor flow for us as a team. And so some of those will come online more here as we get through the next couple of months, as we get prepped. We're trying to be proactive as possible, because we know some of the biggest hurdles are still in front of us until we get to the Dakar, and then the monstrous hurdle is there, and we're all psyched to get there.
Yeah, awesome. And I sincerely hope everybody gets to go over there, and you guys get to give each other a hard time on every single stage. And I hope everybody crosses the line. I mean, wouldn't that just be fantastic? They're like, yeah, that would be fantastic.
There's a lot of bench racing that happens in our team meetings, because we're all just competitive spirits. So you don't want to be the last guy to be on the conference call, right? I'm like, that's going to take a penalty, and so we definitely like to play a little bit and needle each other, and sometimes that's part of the fun. And so I enjoy it. So other than my brother, tell him I'm going to beat him.
That's awesome, man. Of course, and there's nothing like sibling rivalry to make sure your one-upsmanship is there. I mean, I got two boys too as well. You can already see it. Well, all right, guys. Tell you what, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. You guys have any tips or words of advice for folks looking to get into ADV, whether it's racing or just riding?
Yeah, maybe I'm the newer entrant. David's been doing it much longer than me. So I'll just say that I started out with big bikes and went small. My advice is to start the opposite, start small and go big. And now, but the reality is I love it. I love it all. I just love riding. Now I'm super into trials riding because of my good buddy, Paul Neff. I'm into racing. I'm not a great racer, but I love it. It's good for you to just get out there and push yourself. And I love adventure riding, and don't be shy. Get in. I think most people, it looks daunting and it's a little bit scary, and you should just sort of just not let that deter you at all, and get out there and do it. The other thing is, I early on, the one good decision I made was to take some training classes, and it's so good for you to take training in whatever form that is. I've taken all kinds of training. I've done trials training, adventure training. Jimmy Lewis Off-Road is a fantastic training program, and he's got a great navigation school as well. So that's another, if you wanted to get into rally, that's another great way to go.
Very cool. Very cool. And David?
I've been fortunate. I ran a Harley dealership and a KTM dealership, right? My Harley guys just rode on the street, right? But so many of them crossed over into the dual sport and the dirt side of the game. I used my joke's always been, if your friends don't ride motorcycles, get new friends. That's the first best thing you can do, is get the right friends. And so after that, and Kyle's exactly right, if you're new to adventure riding, take the class, because whether it's Jimmy or Paul Neff or a local class of off-roading in your off-road riding in your area, it'll tell you really quickly whether you like it and it's worth all the play and the money and the investment, or you don't. This game isn't for everybody. So, but it's worth the try in that world to go do that. And it, you know, I mean, I love my street bike and I love my dual sport and I like my dirt bike, and they all have a place. The dual sport for me and the adventure side of it just adds a piece that just brings it all together, because you go in the middle of nowhere and then sometimes you're stuck, and then sometimes the farmer helps you, and the next thing you know, you're having dinner at his farm, and it just brings that community together that you just can't really measure and you can't put your finger on it. So if you're a street bike guy, get your second bike and get a dual sport and find your way. You know, if you're a dual sport guy and you really want to try rally, I was down in Sonora today with a guy on a Tiger 800 doing pretty much everything we were doing through the dunes. There's some video of some good deep dives in the sand dunes, but the guy had a blast, right? And it was awesome to see. So that, you know, that'd be my big advice. Just try it. It's worth the investment to try it. And if you love it, it's the better addiction than anything else you've got in the world.
Hear, hear. Awesome. Awesome. Well, all right, guys. Thanks very much for, coming on the show tonight. The folks that know ADVMoto know that we'll be, following up with some of the information on this shortly. Please do stick around, as we kind of blue room after the show. Again, thanks, and I'll catch up with you guys in a second, okay? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, all right. Thanks again to Kyle and David for coming on tonight's show. It's a tremendous effort for the crew to pull this off. And, as a community, I think it's good for us, if we're interested, to only be supportive and wish them well. You can follow them at AmericanRallyTeam.com, and there's a fundraising link in the description for those able to pitch in a dime or two. And we know it won't be easy, but the challenges ahead for the team are monumental on many levels and embody a very important principle in the world of ADV. As Muhammad Ali once said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. And also exciting, tune in next month for ADVMoto Live number 33, where we will check in with Odessa Scott and their four-legged friend, Sirac of ADV Goats. They are some local buddies that left Washington, D.C. a few months ago on a couple of KTMs, and they are now riding south through Mexico. We are eager to hear some stories about their experiences and also how life is returning to whatever normal is on the road. So please tune in and hang out. But as always, your support means a lot and keeps the motorcycle world running. Visit adventuremotorcycle.com for more stories, news, reviews, videos, podcasts, and more. And until next time, from everyone here at ADVMoto, ride safe, have fun, and never forget, the adventure is you.